Hi, this is Ken Torino, the president of K-Tor Company, and in this video we're going to answer one of the questions that we get the most frequently, which is at what rate do our devices charge, for example, cell phones. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do what's probably one of the toughest tests, is we're going to bring a cell phone back from the dead, and we're going to use our hand crank, and the pedal generator would work the same way, but of course it's much easier to pedal than it is to hand crank. Then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to show you with meters that in fact our hand crank charges at exactly the same rate as plugging in a wall outlet. And then at the very end, we'll show you some other products made by other companies just briefly, and so you can understand the difference between the two. Thank you very much. One of the most common questions that we get is at what rate does the K-Tor hand crank charge at? And the answer is it charges at exactly the same rate as plugging a wall outlet. So this gets a little technical, but we're going to demonstrate that. What I have here is a cell phone. And in order to measure the power flow accurately, we've actually cut into the USB cord and hooked up a couple of meters. This one's volts and this one's amps. And power is volts times amps, so we have the measure of the power flow going into it. So here we go. So you can see with the K-Tor 4.35 volts, 300 milliamps. I plugged it into a wall outlet now, and you get basically the same reading. It's 4.5, 4.4. And the current is basically the same, 290 milliamps. It's giving the same voltage, but the current is substantially less. And that's because it's, it's a much smaller generator. This is one of the most popular combination emergency radio, flashlights, and hand cranks on the market. And if you compare it between ours and theirs, one of the most important things is to note the hand crank. Now, we did a fair amount of experimentation on the length of the crank. We tried it longer and we tried it shorter, and we also did it on the hand grips. So we find that it's important to grab it with your hand, right? And also to have a length so that you can crank with it, again, using your arm and not your fingertips. If you look with theirs, you have to grab it with your fingertips, and also if you look at the arm doesn't lock in place, and it's also at an angle. Ours locks in place. The handle also has a couple of degrees of rotation in it, so it isn't going to stress this little shaft right here as you twist it around. One of the reasons ours is as big as it is that's the size of the generator. These are typically 2 watts, and this is a 10-watt generator. So I'm going to crank on this thing for a while. I won't be able to go for that long, but I'll go as long as I can, and I tend to start getting a blister on my thumb from gripping it right here. And then I'll take a break and I'll try and cumulatively go for about 4 or 5 minutes. One of the reasons bringing a cell phone back from the dead is a very, very difficult application is because cell phones aren't just phones, they're computers. And so when they start up, they go through a program startup like a computer. They turn on the radio, they turn on the processor, they turn on the display, and they use quite a lot of power in that startup cycle. And one thing I should mention is that in the instructions on this unit, they did say that you shouldn't go too fast or you'll overheat the generator, and that you shouldn't go for more than 2 minutes at a time or you'll overheat the generator. We're gonna try and go for another 2 minutes. Again, it's a little tough because the generator is overloaded. I should note that in the instructions for these things, they don't really claim they can do this, bring a cell phone back from the dead, but we felt in an emergency hand crank generator, there are two things that were really important, and one would be able to bring a cell phone back from the dead, and the second one is to be able to live on a hand crank basically forever.